On a slightly less fun topic, maybe, but we've got to talk about it, right? Because this is topical, and between EP1 and EP2, we had a fairly major event because we had the budget from Rachel Reeves. I again volunteered this on the table. Just interested in the views of both of you, really. I mean, you're both business owners, so you're going to have a view personally. But to me, it ended up being a bit of a damp squib in the end, given all the briefings and leaks that there were beforehand, and then the fact that we actually got the budget pre-budget, so we could have a good look through. I mean, our take on it, for what it's worth, it's a lot of spending now, and actually, to be fair, some of the spending I absolutely agree with. There's plenty of serious rationale that's gone into why to spend that money, but then the taxation is deferred until later, so you're sort of balancing something up by spending now and taxing later, which to me seems odd. And there were some very odd tax raising measures in there, and some that will have a direct impact on what we're doing as financial advisors. The reduction in the relief on VCTs from 30% to 20%. I don't know whether VCTs are something either of you have been involved in, but that, I would think, probably kills that market off a bit, because you need an incentive to invest in those smaller UK companies that you get through VCTs. Salary sacrifice on pensions, that was a real hit, I think, for financial planners, albeit it doesn't come in until April 29, which is 3 or 4 months before the next election. So I'm not quite what's going on there. I don't know. Yeah, well, I mean, over to you. I mean, Helen, are you first? What were your immediate reactions?
I do think the challenge with the budget is almost not the budget; it's the hype and the run up to it, in terms of the sort of questions and uncertainty that causes, and people start imagining all sorts, and the same things come up time and time again. And really, it's not helpful as a process in itself, because it just causes uncertainty for people, because it shows a real lack of trust that the right decisions is going to be made, a lack of trust that things won't be done in a way to make it harder for everyone. And that's been my repeat feelings about the budget. It's always about, people not trusting that tax money is going to get spent well and they're going to get screwed over. That's basically the build up to it. And I do agree, the salary sacrifice one, I have seen some misunderstandings on it as well, because it's the NI, not the tax. And, people are confused already about pensions. Do we need more confusion? I just don't see it. So the businesses will be hit more than the employees on that one. It seems like business is generally hammered, which, when we need growth, I think is a bit of a ridiculous tactic from that perspective. But yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing with this sort of kite flying is that it's the most damaging part of the process. And unfortunately, it is, in my view, of, damned if you do and damned if you don't. If the Treasury doesn't sort of front run all this news to get people's reactions to it, then there is a chance that they are going to surprise people. Equally, it is completely and utterly ridiculous, some of the things that were being, sort of talked about before the actual budget, some of the rumors, they're just ridiculous. I want to say my favorite one, but the two worst ones, and I don't really know that this is the Treasury. There is a particular providers, or, set of providers in the industry. Every single year, I'm trying not to swear, yeah, like every single year, they say that, the Treasury is going to do something to pension. They're going to take, they're going to take away tax-free lump sum. And there is a particular pension expert whose name I will not dignify by mentioning, who wrote a piece, I think, in the Sunday Times, and says something to the effect of, I'm a pension expert, I'm taking my tax-free lump sum. This is reckless, ridiculous. So look, if we're going to, blame Rachel Reeves for all of this, the Treasury for all this kite flying, we absolutely have to be responsible, as not just as an industry, but also as a profession. You see, I think a lot of these speculations are just, ridiculous. The other one that's been super damaging from what I hear is the exit tax on entrepreneurs. Again, these sort of things are just unhelpful.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if you saw the news about the amount of money that had been withdrawn pre-budget. I mean, you can see a rationale for it. It was interesting to see the difference. I'm going to throw someone under the bus here. So Chris Mason on the BBC, you see his reaction this year and this budget to all of the front running of the news and the testing of various measures with the OBR that led to headlines, compared to under the previous government, how he was describing exactly the same behaviour. Under the Conservatives, he said it was to wrong foot the opposition, and it was super clever, and and wasn't this a wonderful way of doing pre-budget comms? And then for this one, all of a sudden it's she's got to resign because it's just dangerous, and market manipulation, all the rest of it. So some of the commentary has been absolutely over the top, completely. Where I think you're right. I mean, so I think you flagged a news story where there was the prediction was there was something like 10 billion had been withdrawn from markets as a result of not the budget itself, but speculation before the budget. I mean, that is so damaging. And we've seen it with clients where they've withdrawn pension tax-free cash, probably for that because they've read the very same article you read, Abraham, and nothing's happened in the budget to remove it. And it is, for financial journalists, it is the story that writes itself every single year, the removal of pension tax-free cash. And I think this year, some people just, I've probably heard it 25 times over a 25-year career as a financial planner, and it's just the straw that broke the camel's back this year, really.
It is so, sorry, Helena, if you want to chime in, I'll shut up for a sec. It is so ridiculous. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So there's like 60% increase in, the amount of tax-free cash being taken in the run-up to the budget. When you sit down and actually think about it, it is so hard to make this change to, in practice, in law. It is never going to be changes about pension are never going to be overnight, because you need it to walk through the system. The DB schemes need to walk, through it. It's never going to be a thing that happens, the day after the budget or even the following tax year. So why do we have people getting caught up with this? And indeed, in my experience, professionals, financial advice providers getting caught up with this nonsense. So I just feel that, yes, there is kite flying by Treasury, but also this is amplified by reckless journalists and providers for absolutely no justifiable reason whatsoever. The other thing that you alluded to was that 10 billion's been taken. Yeah, 10 billion's been taken. So there's a news in the Telegraph, I think, something along the lines of, Reef triggers havoc in the stock markets as investors pull 10 billion in the 6 month up to the budget. I don't think actually that all of that is to do with the budget. I think we have had a very volatile start of the year, and there are all this talk about AI bubble and all these things. Investors do this from time to time. To me, it is just a reminder of the value of financial planning, behavioral coaching, and advice, that we had all of this nonsense at the start of the year where the leader of the free world seemed to be tweeting up chaos every time he took a dump from wherever porcelain situation room it was. And you had this kind of, speculation on LinkedIn and Twitter and social media about, markets. And yet portfolios have actually done extremely well this year. I think a 60-40 portfolio is done something like 12, 13% this year. Investors get carried away by this nonsense. To put all of that blame at the feet of Treasury or the Chancellor, again, is ridiculous. The final point I want to make, and I promise you I will shut up, is every year, twice now, everyone underestimate this lady. I wouldn't want to be the Chancellor of this country. For what? Why? So in other words, she earns, I don't know, £170,000 a year. There is this incredible pressure on her from her backbenchers, from the business community, from the political opposition. Every time, we underestimated her. And when she stood up and she was reading this, one thing that struck me was how many ways you can make money. You can raise taxes as a chancellor. She is raising £8 billion from just freezing the tax threshold for 2 more years. Let's not forget the Conservatives who are supposed to know a thing or two about the labor curve and business. They did this. They started this. She just extended it for 2 more years, and she's raising £8 freaking billion. My favorite tax. I love salary sacrifice. I max out my salary sacrifice. This is why I have no money.
Good.
I max out my salary sacrifice every year. I love salary sacrifice because you get 20%, 25% I work out, 15% from employer NI, and 2% from if you're a higher taxpayer. So it's like, 17%, more going into your pension, and she's going to cap this. She waits till 2027.
Nine.
No, 2029.
No,
That's
2029.
extraordinary.
2029.
Yeah.
You could still put £180,000 into your pension between now and when that rule comes in. Oh, actually, that's assuming that you have no carried forward allowance. You could put all your salary into salary sacrifice. But again, so between now and then, you could put a lot of money into this thing between now and then. So I think of it and think, that's bad. But actually, it's not that bad. So look, I mean, who would want this job? We've become, it's impossible to manage the pulse of this country, unfortunately, because of all these political, the different political constituencies that she has to pander to.